Made any sense to me why Kentucky would ever have any kind of Confederate pride, Southern pride whatsoever. It makes no sense whatsoever. Kentucky's central, right? It's in the middle. It's not more northern or southern. It's just right there in the middle, which is why it was strategically important. Lincoln said we can hope to have God on our side, but we must have Kentucky. It was strategic. It was important. So since we fought for the Union, Kentucky sided with the Union. Kentucky... 100,000 Kentuckians fought for the United States of America. They fought for Abraham Lincoln. They're on the side of the North. 100,000 Kentuckians fought for the North. 25,000 fought for the South. 100,000, 80%, including 25,000 brand new black folks who are anti-fascist. Here's your gun. Go get you some freedom. So... it never made sense to me for Kentucky to do it, but Ohio, there's Confederate flags in Ohio. There's Confederate memorabilia all across the United States. There's nothing in Colorado. There are some states. I heard 31 states have Confederate monuments. So that means there's 19 good states. There's 19 states that actually, aren't fucked up in the head, and they're not for black genocide or slavery. Re-enslavement, genocide, I don't even know what the fuck they're calling for. But I guarantee you, it's anti-black. That's what it is, 100%. North Carolina, they've added 35 new monuments since 2000. 35 brand new monuments. What the fuck, North Carolina? You're fighting for a lost cause that was pro-slavery. You're spending money that you don't have on shit you don't need. So you can, what, create another fucking generation of white supremacy? 35 new fucking monuments? There's at least 700 Confederate monuments, more than 1,000, at least 700, possibly more than 1,000 in 31 states. So 19 states are fucking A-OK, including Colorado. No Confederate monuments in Colorado. And marijuana's free here. Freedom is legalized here. Nowhere in the South are they ever going to legalize freedom. They talk about freedom of speech, freedom to wave the Confederate flag. Shut the fuck up. You don't believe in freedom. You're anti-marijuana. You've never been for freedom. Freedom. Shut the fuck up. Rebels. Shut the fuck up. You're right-wing conservative. You're not rebels. You don't believe in rebelling against nothing. When your kids, you beat your kids. You're a bunch of child beaters. So when they rebel, then you're like, what the hell's going on here? But North Carolina is the South. There are these monuments all throughout the country. Here's a quick list, okay? So I got some monuments in Arizona. I got some monuments in Delaware. 2007, Delaware. Delaware in 2007? Delaware, you weren't even the Confederacy. But in Georgetown, Delaware, 2000. Okay, so Washington State, Nevada, Idaho, Massachusetts, Montana, Washington, D.C., California. And there's other states that I didn't mention. Wyoming. Wyoming? Wyoming, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? I know you got a bunch of yaks. Now you're a bunch of racist fucking yaks. You own a bunch of yaks and you're a bunch of white supremacist pricks. Okay, Wyoming, good job. California? Alright, so let's, California, they got a city. A whole town, a whole city called Confederate Corners. Apparently some Confederates moved out there and they called themselves a Confederate Corner. So they did find a Confederacy. They did establish themselves. They really wanted. They left and they established themselves in California. So that's pretty much it. But what the fuck can anybody who comes out of, Confederate Corners, you know the legacy, you know what you're perpetuating, you're not part of you're in America, it's almost like you seceded, you're your own fucking racist, white supremacist town. But California, right? California didn't fight for the fucking North, didn't fight for the South. There was the 49ers. Wasn't that the gold rush? I'm sure they had their issues over there. Something was going on in these states during the Civil War. Colorado, 4 times we tried to get statehood, the Unionists, but the Confederates fucked it up every time. But we had a strong pro-union, pro-statehood. We want to become part of America. 4 times. 4 times we tried to become a state during the Civil War, but the Confederacy stopped our statehood. Andrew Johnson vetoed Colorado statehood. And then we wouldn't become a state until August 1st, 1876, when U.S. Grant signed that bill. Okay, so Washington, D.C. There's 2 publicly supported spaces dedicated to the Confederacy in Washington, D.C. Confederate General Fighting Joe Wheeler statue. Jefferson Davis Senate desk reserved for Senate or Senior Senator of Mississippi. So there's a Jefferson Davis Senate desk. And then there's Fighting Joe Wheeler. Fighting Joe Wheeler statue. Washington, D.C. Right there in the capital of the United States of America in Massachusetts. There's 1 publicly supported space dedicated to the Confederacy in Fort Warren, George's Island, Boston Harbor. There's a Confederate memorial to the 13 Confederate prisoners who died in captivity. It was dedicated in 1963. 1963? What? Was that 100 years later or something? These are people just love white supremacy, right? I mean, there was lots of wars that had happened. World War I happened. World War I happened before World War II and the Civil War. How come y'all ain't like, we're gonna fucking win World War I again? What happened with that? What about the Korean War? What about Vietnam? There's been a lot of fucking shit that's happened since the Civil War. No, that you just want 1850s, huh? Just sticking back there, 1860s. Oh, okay. Not a big fan of the Americans fighting against... Montana. It's 2,000 miles west of Gettysburg, 200 miles south of the Canadian border. In Helena, Montana, there's a big Confederate fountain. Idaho and Boise, Robert E. Lee Campground. And then in Boise National Park, Robert E. Lee Creek. Robert E. Lee's got campgrounds. He's got creeks. What about the anti-racist? Do we have a bunch of statues and monuments? The people that, the Willis Russells of the world? Where is the statue for Willis Russell at? Nevada, 1 publicly supported. This is at least. This is the ones that Wikipedia have found. Snake Range Mountains. The Jefferson Davis Peak. The Great Basin National Park. Jefferson Davis Peak. Okay, Nevada, you fucks. Nevada, you named a mountain? A whole fucking mountain after Jefferson Davis. What the fuck? Kentucky, Jefferson Davis was born in Kentucky. Lincoln and Jefferson Davis are like, only 100 miles or something. 10 miles, I don't know. They're born close by each other, both in Kentucky. So I can kind of understand the history fucking argument for Kentucky. But Nevada? You're by California. You weren't even a state. How the fuck could you side with the Confederacy when you weren't even a fucking state? A whole mountain. Jefferson Davis gets a whole mountain. Are there any of those mountains, a Big Rock Candy Mountain, for all the homeless people to come and be free and allowed to live? Is there a homeless mountain? Why don't we give a mountain to the homeless people? Let's take Jefferson Davis Peak and turn it to Big Rock Candy Mountain for the homeless. Washington State, they got a Confederate Park up on I-5. On Interstate 5, there's a Confederate Park. There's also Robert E. Lee Elementary School in East Wenatchee, which is east of Wenatchee. So Robert E. Lee Elementary School. Somebody said, tear it down. You could just rename it. Okay, Robert E. Lee Elementary School. Let's call it Frederick Douglass Elementary School. Now, all those students will be anti-racist, and they will always, they will fight against oppression. They will be against bullies. They will grow up being good, wholesome human beings. Using Robert E. Lee's fucking namesake. He was against these monuments. You're going against what he fought for. He became an American, and he renounced the Confederacy. And he was being serious about it. Delaware, in 2007. What the fuck? Delaware wasn't Confederate. North Carolina had 35 monuments, which is ridiculous since 2000. But that's just as 2000 Confederate monument for Georgetown, Delaware. And last but not least, Arizona. There's 3 or 4 things here. So Confederate heritage groups dedicated a memorial in Sierra Vista, Arizona, near the Mexican border, erected in 2010. 2010, Sierra Vista Confederate Memorial in the Historical Soldiers Memorial Cemetery area of the Southern Arizona Veterans Cemetery in Sierra Vista. Monument is erected in 2010 to honor the 21 soldiers interred in that cemetery who served in the Confederate Army during the Civil War and later fought in Indian Wars in Arizona as members of the U.S. Army. I guess they're Americans, right? So why would there be a Confederate monument? They were Americans. They fought in the U.S. Army against Indians, so it's like, God damn it. You're fighting for slaves, now you're fighting against, you're genociding, you know, you're for... It's like you just went from one evil to the next. You're going to just eat a bunch of babies? Alex Jones, he sees people that crawl out from under rocks and they got green skin and they screaming that they love Satan and they want to eat babies, and he has it on videotape. He's got it on videotape. So Sierra Vista, they, 21 soldiers, since you said that they later fought in Indian Wars, why wouldn't they be American soldiers? Nah. Now let's ignore their Americanness and let's prop up their Confederacy. You know what I say about them 21 fucking soldiers? Fuck them 21 soldiers. Fuck. Arizona killed Ronnie Lee Smith. Why don't you make a monument for him? He was in favor of freedom, legalizing freedom. Wasn't freedom a, like, American thing? Like, freedom, democracy, isn't that like our whole thing? And yet, not in Arizona. Nope, smoke a joint in Arizona, you die. Fuck Arizona. Not a surprise that Arizona's a bunch of racist fucks that would erect a Confederacy even though they weren't the Confederate. I don't even know, Arizona wasn't even a state then either. So, Phoenix, Arizona Confederate Veterans Monument in Greenwood Memory Lawn Cemetery in Phoenix, erected in 1999. God damn it. What the fuck? People want to be like, oh, don't tear down history. This ain't history. You're fucking erecting it just yesterday. That's history. No, you erected... I saw you just yesterday. You just did that. How come you don't put up a bunch of monuments of Benedict Arnold? If I was just going to wear, ISIS garb and fly an ISIS flag and just go around, hey, it's my freedom. Nobody'd say anything, right? If I was ISIS marching through the streets saying that I was going to overthrow the government, blood and soil, carrying assault rifles. Yeah. Y'all would be okay with that. ISIS, technically we're a free society. If ISIS wants to march through your streets, you gotta let them. So, Arizona Confederate Veterans Monument in Wesley Boland Park next to the Arizona State Capitol in Phoenix, erected by the United Daughters of the Confederacy. So, there's another monument. Tucson, there's a sign, plaque, and monument which commemorates the Battle of Pikachu Pass. What? Battle of Pikachu? Pikachu. It's not Pikachu, it's Pikachu. So, sign, plaque, and monument which commemorates the Battle of Pikachu Pass, and in one case honors the Confederate troops and includes a Stars and Bars flag. God damn it. So, Kentucky, there might be some reason for the schizophrenia. 20% of the Kentuckians fought for the South. 80%, overwhelming vast majority of the government fought for the North. The whole state was for the North. They were for the Union. They were for America. They were for Abraham Lincoln. And, subsequently they fought against slavery. And good for Kentucky for being on the right side of history. Good for those legislatures. Who are those legislators? Who was the governor? Those are fucking heroes. The governor of Kentucky. There's also the butcher. I forget his name, but the butcher. He's a hero in the Civil War too. So, good. We should honor those people. Where are the monuments for the butcher? He died poor and in obscurity. And they just called him the butcher. That's what the Confederates called him, the press. Because for every one person the Confederates killed of the Union, they would kill 2 Confederates. You know, prisoners. Political prisoners. So, that's why they call him the butcher. For every one you kill of us, we kill 2 of you. All those people in the legislature, the governor that ran through it, all those troops, 100,000. There's 100,000 soldiers that fought on the right side. And you're basically pissing and shitting on their fucking legacy just so you could be a white supremacist asshole. You're shitting on the history of Kentucky. You're shitting on the history of America. Don't tell me you're a fucking proud American. Shut the fuck up. You don't even like this country. You let your white supremacy destroy this country, which is what you're doing right now. So, yeah. Arizona, Delaware, Washington State, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Massachusetts, Wyoming, Washington, D.C., I don't know, I guess it was over there, but California, Washington, you can't get more northwestern than Washington. You're definitely north, and you're west, not Confederacy, but if you wanted to send your kid to Robert E. Lee Elementary School, just go to East Wenatchee. And then you can have your kids play at the Confederate Park up on Interstate 5. Fucking Washington. What the fuck? Washington, California? It's almost like the Confederacy is from sea to shining sea. Maybe white supremacy is the dominant culture of the entire United States. If so, the United States needs to secede out of the Confederacy. Or, let's expel these motherfuckers. Let's get rid of the Nazis of the Confederacy once and for all.